going to talk next. We're going to talk about the Ask the Doc question. With the recent completion of the NBA Finals, pretty much everyone saw the injury to Kevin Durant. The question to us was, with the recent injury to Kevin, I was wondering, how can I prevent an Achilles tear? So we were kind of wondering, in a case like that, what happened?
Yeah. So I pulled from a couple different sites kind of what maybe some I hate to say like hearsay, but what were some of the behind the scenes conversations within the Golden State, locker room, or maybe with some of the staff. Of course, they're not going to release everything from, protecting I guess their integrity and also the players as well. But, so basically bringing it back, Kevin Durant had an injury on May 8th, the original injury that they deemed as a quote unquote just calf strain. Nothing specific about it, but to the right leg, it was a calf strain. And so that was, let's just start at May 8th. Then the most recent injury that everybody saw was on June 10th. So within about a month, he had already returned back. And the question is, did he come back too soon? And some of the decisions that have to be made leading into a player returning from any injury is, how much are we going to play him? And what signs are we looking for to see if the player is actually like okay to keep playing, or if we should pull him a little bit early. And with that being said, in Game 5 of the NBA Finals, Kevin Durant played he played 12 of the first 14 minutes right off the bat, which seemed in a lot of folks' eyes to be pretty extreme. Jumping, running, sprinting. And so basically multiple league sources outside the Warriors organization, this is according to NBCSports.com, he played 12 of the 14 first minutes of a finals game after not playing a game in over a month due to the soft tissue injury. Was big, like, whoa, white flag, possibly red flag, like what are they thinking, and it even stunned many across the league who didn't expect Durant to play at all, other than just little short bursts. And that was actually from Coach Steve Kerr. He was commenting that after the game. But basically, he played quite a bit in the first quarter, and then rather than sit him in the second quarter, again, they had him playing right off the bat again, and out of nowhere, his leg buckled on a non-contact play. And, I guess the tone across the league becomes, this seems unacceptable. How isn't there more, at a level of the NBA, how isn't this more protecting the athlete from something that can happen, especially when he's returning from an original injury just, 30 some days before. So as for the circumstances around the injury, sources told NBCSports.com that the plan going into the game was to take Durant out when he felt tired. However, as we all know, that didn't happen as early as they had expected going into the game, and Durant hadn't shown any signs of fatigue. And according to sources close to the situation, the decision to play more minutes was described as a collaborative one, agreed to by both Durant and the medical staff. But you don't have to have a medical degree to see how a calf strain and an Achilles injury to the same leg may be related. Although some of these, sources are saying that the team was kind of denying that they had nothing to do with each other. It's unbelievable, So real quick, playing through a strained calf can increase the chances of a secondary injury occurring somewhere else along the kinetic chain. We know that, working with athletes, you see a compensation pattern right away after an injury because the body wants the path of least resistance. It wants to still, if it can, if the injury is not that severe and the player is going to play somewhere else along the kinetic chain, it's going to try to give, and you'll see a compensation pattern, maybe the opposite hip, knee, ankle, in a case like Durant's here too. But basically, his Achilles is what broke down, and multiple sources around the league had long believed that Durant's initial injury in May was consistent with a partial Achilles tear, which would explain why Durant needed more than a month to get back on the court. Mild calf strains usually take a week or two to return to play, but not more than a month. So that's kind of all the background info there, but let's talk a little bit more about, what could have been done preventatively and what he might be looking forwards to, as his rehab.
Well, like you said, it ultimately comes down to two groups. And number one, it's on the athlete to tell the training staff what they're feeling, what's going on, and to take that competitive edge, competitive nature out of their decision-making process and realize I'm running a risk for the long term of my health and in a basketball player, their career. Mm-hmm. It's not just a simple, I feel okay, I can go play. This is if I do this and it becomes a bigger injury, this could cut years off of my career, my ability to, I don't think he's worried about providing for his family at this point, but my ability to continue to make money. And realistically, I mean, Durant's one of the top players in the NBA. He's concerned with his current legacy and catching up with LeBron in people's eyes and catching up with Jordan and winning multiple championships and securing his legacy. So he has to be able to reel that, I want to help my team at all costs.
Emotion.
Yeah, pull that back in. And then from the training staff standpoint, you have to, A, take anything that they're telling you and realize that that's going to happen. I know that I've had plenty of people who say, well, Doc, I want to get back and play. Can I play? Can I play? And realistically, I have to say no, because you're at a greater risk to injure yourself again if we go out there like that. And look, it's basketball. There's always a risk. I worked with a lot of pro wrestlers. There's always a risk. My question is this player or participant at a greater risk because of this previous injury to injure themselves further or perhaps even worse? So as a physician or as part of any training team, that's my question. And if my answer is they're at a high risk or a great risk that would be substantially greater than had they not had the previous injury, then no, it's not time for them to return to competition, no matter what the situation, even if it's that NBA championship. And I know there was a study a while back, and the mindset of an athlete is something that they studied Olympic athletes or potential Olympic athletes, and they said if you had the opportunity to compete in the Olympics, would you be willing to sacrifice and take 5 years off of your life? And an overwhelming majority of them said they would be willing to lose 5 years off their life to achieve their goal of competing in the Olympics. So getting back to Durant's situation, now what we want to know, getting back to our original question, is what can we do to prevent this particular injury from happening in the first place? And then maybe if we do have an injury, what can we do? So we need a little bit of an anatomical review for that. So in the calf, we have technically 3 muscles that come together and create the Achilles tendon. Number 1, which is the most common one that we think of, is the gastrocnemius, and it's 2 heads. They originate off of around the knee joint. They come down, and that's the most outermost, so the posterior most towards the back. That's the outer one. You kind of see the diamond heads on that, and that's the main muscle. It's mostly responsible for plantar flexion, so pointing your toes down towards the ground when your knee is straighter. The muscle underneath that is the soleus. Some similar attachments, but it's underneath the gastroc, and it's more responsible for flexion of that plantar area when your knee is bent. And then finally, there's another weak, maybe even ancestral muscle that's left there, and it comes off the lateral side of the knee, and it comes back to the outside, and it's called the plantaris. And it's a very small muscle, crosses that back of the knee. The belly is only about 2 to 3 inches long max, and then it's mostly tendon, but it does roll right into that Achilles. And I know I've seen many people who I've thought that they've ruptured an Achilles or injured a calf, and it was actually this plantaris. However, that can tear, and to some extent, depending upon how that injury goes, that could make you more likely to injure in the future, because it can create a lot of inflammation and even abnormal function to that. So what we want to figure out is, how do we either A, prevent this, or B, recover from a mild strain?
Yeah, so there's going to be some common goals that we're going to go for right off the bat. So, a lot of times when someone has surgery, they're immobilized right away. So they put them in a boot, and we were kind of looking around to kind of see what standard of care is now. And they actually put them in a little bit of plantar flexion, was at 20 to 30 degrees.
Yep, right off the bat.
And they'll be there for the first 2 weeks. And then the next 2 weeks, so weeks 2 to 4, they'll start to bring it back to a little bit more of neutral foot. And sometimes they'll even give them like a little heel lift. But they're trying to protect a certain range of motion, which I guess you and I off air had different feelings on. But nevertheless, this is what he may be looking forward too in the first month after surgery. And then it's going to just be really, really gentle, sometimes even passive, where maybe the physical therapist or whoever's taking care of him would be doing passive ankle ranges of motion to just try to get, the body to move through stuff, but not having the athlete or the person, force through anything, probably not even by any means any weight bearing anything. So passive ankle range of motions in all directions, ankle pumps. I think we're gonna have a video coming up on some of this too, so we'll put that up on the YouTube page. And then maybe even just doing something simple like ankle alphabets. So that's all right in the beginning. That's just going to be really, really gentle movement. Like I said, some of it's passive, but we were trying to get is overall pain-free functional mobility back. Then the next, progression will be into getting some flexibility back, progressive ankle strengthening, which might even be to the point of some weight bearing, moving around. Obviously, we got to get back into the balance and proprioception activities too to get the athlete confident in moving around. Then we start to implement sport-specific plyos, and then eventually aerobic conditioning and getting back to normal. But this can take, would you say, close to a year? I mean, he may not play next year, which is a big topic right now.
Yeah, it definitely can take quite a long time. And for any of our listeners who don't understand what proprioception is, just to clarify that, what that is knowing where your body parts are at in space. So if I closed my eyes and wanted to touch my nose, I know where my nose is. But after an injury to the Achilles, to the ankle especially, sometimes the knee, that communication between our brain and that body part breaks down. And we have to restore that. And one of the easiest ways to restore that is to give the body part that we're training an unstable surface to kind of cue back to the brain, hey, here's the position. And we just sort of forcefully make it learn. And that's a big one. And that one goes huge when it comes to preventative stuff. You mentioned the alphabet, doing the little alphabet, pretending your toe is a pen, doing all the caps and then all the lowercase letters with your toe. That's training that communication pattern again. And people wonder, well, why is it when I sprain an ankle I continue to keep spraining it? It's because that communication pattern is broke down. It's actually not because of the fact that the tissues are weaker. It's because the communication pattern is far beyond where we would want it. We want it to be much stronger. So in a case like Kevin's, what could we have done, or maybe after that original injury, what should we have done to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And of course, some of the same things that we would see in a post-surgical or post-injury setting are the same things that we would use to keep preventative.
Good point. Yep.
So whether that be training the proprioception, training on some unstable surfaces, stretching, of course, is huge. Okay, I have the video. One of the videos we have will explain how to stretch the calf and then separately the Achilles and soleus. Why, when we kind of change that knee position, it works to get that whole region. And then I think that when we're training, for us, we're in the gym, making sure that we use that full range of motion. Sometimes if we're doing, say, calf raises, we're going so much on our toes, and we don't get that what's called dorsiflexion, whereas your toes are pointing up towards your nose. We don't get that full dorsiflexion. And another thing that might be a little interesting to know is we're in a society where we love these flip-flops, the sandals.
Oh yeah,
here
we go.
When you are constantly wearing flip-flops, because of the fact that if you walk in a normal gait, which is a heel to toe gait, you'll kick that shoe right off. So what people start to do is they start to walk very flat-footed or with a shuffled gait, almost like an older person or somebody with a Parkinson's gait, or they're up on their toes. So in an athlete where you got to be quick and responsive, you are up on your toes, and now maybe you're walking without that normal heel-to-toe gait. These common things keep happening, and we're constantly in a plantar flexed position, even when we're sleeping. When we're sleeping and it's pointed down, everything we seem to do keeps shortening and shortening and shortening that Achilles. So the stretching becomes massively important. And also one of the things I like to do is have my patients pump up and down before they ever take that first step out of bed, because that way you're kind of warming up and priming that Achilles to not have a little micro injury, because otherwise that first step down can aggravate both the plantar fascia in the foot, but also the Achilles tendon up higher. So that chronic repetitive micro trauma can make it more likely to have an injury in the future.
So you guys also can check out, we're going to put some mobility videos on there too that that'll include, like different bands, and then also like a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball, especially the last point you made about the plantar fascia. If we don't release that plantar fascia daily, that can have implications all the way up the kinetic chain and keep, if you just, take someone who hasn't ran in a while and then they go running, they might say their calf is sore, but the bottom of their feet usually kill them because they haven't spent any time. And also we'll cover the back of the calf, the bottom of the foot, and then also I got something for us to work on the front of the shin. No one ever stretches the front of the shin, but every time you take a step, think about it, you got to lift your feet or else you trip. So that muscle, you can see shin splints too.
Yes.
And sometimes it's really nice to add something in there for all three components of that lower leg.
Yes, I think that's quite a bit of information to digest, and obviously we could go further in detail on all of this, but we're going to hopefully touch base with this on the videos and give you guys some more information. If there's something specific that you're dealing with, again, while we can't be your doctors, if there's something you want us to answer or want us to address, we'll be more than happy to address what we can. If you shoot a comment below on the YouTube channel or email us, contact@optimalfunction.com, we'd be more than happy to address what we can with you, because we always want the best for not only our patients in office, but for you guys, our listeners. So
cool.
I think we're going to take a little bit of a break here, and then we're going to come back with our final thoughts. So we'll be right back.